Okay. Well, thank you for joining me. And this is our July webinar, which is on health promoting properties of summer produce. And I picked this topic because, of course, it's tomato season where I live and people go crazy about that. But also, it's fun to kind of learn about how our land produces food that promotes health of our bodies. So we'll cover a variety of different things today. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Julie Lanford, and I am the Community Engagement Director at Cancer Services. We're a nonprofit in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I'm the author and creator of cancerdietitian.com. I started the website in 2007 when I was very first working in oncology. And that was obviously like 16, almost 17 years ago. So, still coming up with lots of different things to talk about. And mostly my inspiration comes from you all, the clients that I serve and the questions that you ask. So if you have suggestions on other webinar topics, feel free to email me. I think, oh, let me see here. Maybe someone can put in the chat if you're seeing my slides, okay? I'm seeing two different views here because I'm so fancy with my two screens that I'm actually not sure what you're seeing. So hopefully you're seeing the full screen version of the slides, but this is me. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I'm a board certified specialist in oncology nutrition. I do have a master's in public health from UNC Chapel Hill, and there we go. I have a bachelor's degree in biology from NC State and an executive certificate in nonprofit leadership from Duke. So I covered 3 universities over there in the Triangle, North Carolina. But I have worked at Cancer Services for 16 years, and my passion is really for people who have are currently facing cancer, have gone through cancer treatment in the past, who just want to know how to eat healthier in a way that's practical and manageable. So our agenda for today, we are going to review the nutrition guidelines for cancer survivors. We'll talk about nutritional content of summer produce, how to find out what produce is in season in your area, and several recipe ideas. So I do want to start with a review so that we're all kind of on the same page. And if the review is something you want more of, I've got a couple of other webinars available on my website that you would benefit from. So first of all, remembering that there's no food or nutrient that can cause cancer or cure cancer. So there's no like one magical food or one toxic food. It really is a combination of foods. So the American Institute for Cancer Research is one of my favorite organizations because they work specifically around lifestyle and cancer risk, and they get all these really great researchers together to come up with recommendations that I think are helpful for the public. So their conclusion is that there's no single food that can protect you against cancer just by itself, but research shows that a diet filled with a variety of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, and other plant foods does help lower risk for many cancers. And in lab studies, many individual minerals, vitamins, and phytochemicals do demonstrate anti-cancer effects, but we don't really promote taking in individual minerals or vitamins or phytochemicals. What we want is for you to include more foods that have those components in them, and that helps reduce your risk of developing cancer, which means it also helps you live healthier afterwards. And this is like a consistent message across all different types of organizations that look at healthy eating, is that your pattern of eating is more important than any individual foods, and that your pattern of eating you would want is to get lots of different phytochemicals, and phytochemicals, that just means plant nutrients. So that's plants that provide you with all types of nutrients. Of course, I would tell you that's pretty much any plant, but every plant has a different nutrient profile. So we're going to talk some about that today. But phytochemicals, which sounds like a big, complicated, chemical sounding word, just means plant nutrients, and they're good for you. So antioxidants are one type of phytochemical. What we do know is that Evidence continues to show that minerals, vitamins, and plant nutrients interact to provide extra cancer protection. So that's why we say to eat a mostly plant-based diet. That doesn't mean that you have to only eat plants. It does mean that whether you eat meat and dairy or not, you should eat lots of plants. So you can eat lots of plants and also eat moderate portions of meat and dairy and have a perfectly healthy diet, or you can choose to not eat any meat or not eat any dairy or sort of do a combination. So if you are a vegan, that means you don't eat any animal products at all. If you're a vegetarian, that means you don't eat animal products other than dairy and eggs. And then if you're a pescatarian, that means you eat fish. And anyway, if you want to name for yourself, but you don't quite fit any of those, you just call yourself a flexitarian. And that way we all get to have a nice label. So the reason that we encourage plant-based eating is that you get lots more plant nutrients when you focus on the plants rather than what many people do, which is focus on the meat and then they fill in with the rest of the stuff. So we want to make sure that you're getting plenty of plant nutrients because those nutrients are what helps your body function. It's what supports your immune system. It's what helps rebuild muscle after it's been torn down. It supports all of your, enzyme systems that are going on in your body that make your body work well. And so if you don't provide your body with these plant nutrients, basically it just doesn't get them. So by eating plenty of plants that are not too processed and getting a variety of colors, you get a large variety of phytonutrients, which helps support a healthy diet. So we are running an Eat the Rainbow program right now. If you aren't signed up, it's not too late to sign up. We just sent out week 2's email yesterday, and it is a 12-week program that really focuses on how you can get more fruits and vegetables into your day and get a variety of colors, because when you get a variety of colors, it gives you a variety of different nutrients, which we will talk about today. So really our goal when it comes to fruits and vegetables is to combine 4 to 5 cups a day. So that could be more fruits than vegetables than fruits. I really don't care that much. If you go to the myplate.gov and you put in some basic information about yourself, it'll probably tell you to have 1.5 cups of fruits and 2.5 cups of vegetables a day. So that adds up to 4. I say kind of whatever's in season, whatever's in your fridge, whatever's in your house. Those are the fruits and vegetables that are going to be good for you to eat. So sort of a practical way to break that down is 1 cup of fruit with your breakfast, 1 cup of vegetables with your lunch and a fruit, 1 cup of vegetables with your dinner and a fruit, and then fruits and or vegetables at snack time. So that doesn't mean that all you eat is fruits and vegetables. It just means that when you eat, you want to make sure you're including fruits or vegetables in your meals or snacks. And when you do that, it adds up pretty quickly. The challenge for people is if they end up not consuming fruit with breakfast or skipping breakfast completely, and then many people don't have many fruits or vegetables for lunch, it's very difficult to add up or get enough from what your body needs just at the end of the day. So really making sure to intentionally kind of get fruits and vegetables spread out throughout the day will help you meet that goal. Okay, and I want to just go ahead and cover this right up front since we're going to talk about so many different produce. And I cover this topic in almost all of my cancer nutrition myths type things. So I did a hot topics webinar last fall that is recorded and available on my website where I talk about this. I talk about this frequently on my podcast, and anytime someone goes over myths, this one always seems to pop up. So the myth is that somehow organic foods are better for you because conventional pesticides cause cancer. But the fact is that there's no direct studies on humans to show that organic foods prevent cancer or other diseases. The current evidence does not show that organic food is any higher in vitamins, minerals, or other nutrients. And for the pesticide issue, the amount of pesticides that are found in conventionally grown food products are much lower than what the EPA has deemed a safe level. So conventionally grown produce is just as nutritious and just as healthy for you as organically grown produce. The only difference between those two types of produce is just essentially how the farmer farmed the food. And it can be expensive for farmers to go through the certification process for organic. So most farmers, they're only going to need pesticides, or they only use pesticides when they need to. Because it turns out we all, as consumers, don't really want apples with worms in them, or, it's really hard to sell produce that's has bugs on it. So the other thing to know is that organic growing practices do use pesticides. They're just organically approved pesticides, which may or may not be any safer than conventionally grown or conventional pesticides. So there's just a lot of nuances when it comes to the farming process. And I don't necessarily think that everyone has to understand all of it. I think what's important is for you to feel confident in the choices that you're making. I personally don't think that you have to consume only organic produce. I think what matters most is that you're consuming enough produce to give your body the nutrients it needs to function. Whether it's organically grown or not is less important to me. I buy sometimes organic, sometimes not organic. It kind of more, is important to me is if it's tastes good. Of course, that's number one. Like, I want a good tasting piece of produce. If it's grown closer to me, usually they taste better. And that helps the economics of my local area. So I do kind of think that I prioritize local. And also I prioritize costs because most of us are living on a budget and we want to eat healthy without it breaking the bank. All right, so now we're going to move into the different types of seasonal produce in the summer, which is really fun. We're going to talk about different ones and what they have in them. And many of them, you will notice there's kind of a theme. They all have similar nutrients. And so that's why we say, you know what, if you don't like one of them, that's okay, because there's lots of other plant sources of nutrients and you don't have to eat any particular ones. So the first one we're starting with is raspberries, which is one of my personal favorites. We had a raspberry bush when I was growing up as a kid, and it's, eating produce right off the plant is so delicious. So, and when things taste good, you are more likely to eat them. I know. And for me and for the children that I have in my household, if things taste good, they're happy to eat it. If it doesn't taste good, none of us want to eat it. So figuring out how to find ones that taste good or to make them taste good really helps a lot with nourishing your body. So think about raspberries. They're a great source of fiber. In 1 cup of raspberries, you get 8 grams of fiber. They have pectin in them, which is a type of soluble fiber. There are 2 types of fiber. If you missed my carbs webinar last month, you can go back and watch it, but I talk some about fiber in that webinar and the different types of fiber. Pectin is the type of fiber that tends to kind of bind to cholesterol in our intestinal tract, and that way it helps to keep our heart healthy. And then raspberries are also great sources of antioxidants. When we talk about eat the rainbow and the natural colors of things, different colors mean different plant nutrients are in the food. And so this red color of the raspberries often can have a similar nutrient profile as other red fruits and vegetables. So elagitanin is one antioxidant. Anthocyanin is another one, which we will talk about with blueberries, and it's kind of one of the more popular antioxidants. Antioxidants is just a subcategory of plant nutrients, and there's lots of different types of antioxidants. So again, it's much better for you to get your antioxidants from foods, and it's not hard to get them. Pretty much all produce will have antioxidants in them. Plants do that. We do not recommend high doses of antioxidants. So when you think about some of the supplements that you can purchase at your pharmacy or herbal supplement store, it's not necessarily good for you to get very high doses of antioxidants, especially people during cancer treatment. We do not want high doses of antioxidants. Food level doses, or like green tea has antioxidants in it, those are all fine. When you get them in food form or brewed tea form, the amount or the amount of antioxidant that's in that food or that drink is the perfect ratio for your body to manage versus if you buy antioxidant supplements. So some of the, cold ease or those types of things, they have very high levels of antioxidants and vitamin C that is really not good for your body to have to process. So we much prefer that you get them from food. If you are in cancer treatment, most of the physicians do not want people taking antioxidant supplements at all. It is fine for you to consume for food versions of antioxidants. But I personally don't recommend supplement versions of antioxidants almost any time. It's much better to get it from food because look at, you eat raspberries, you get all these other things. But if you only take an antioxidant supplement or an anthocyanin supplement, you don't get the fiber or the pectin or the folate or the vitamin C or the potassium that you would get when you ate a raspberry. So it's kind of packaged perfectly for what our bodies need. Okay. So then the next one is blueberries, which ties in nicely because blueberries are actually the one that's known more for the anthocyanins. So if you have heard that blueberries are a good source of like the most powerful antioxidant, that they're talking about anthocyanins. So obviously blueberries are not the only source of anthocyanins because we talked about it with raspberries and you'll probably see it on some of the lists of other foods that I talk about today. But it has, people will claim it's the most potent antioxidant, and that's because of a ranking system that was created by some scientists. I don't really believe that one antioxidant is so much better than another. Again, when you eat a variety of colors, you get a variety of nutrients. And so you don't really have to think so hard about which types of, antioxidants do I need to um, pay attention to. I think you eat colorful fruits and vegetables, you're going to get a variety, and that's what matters most. But blueberries are also a great source of fiber, vitamin C, flavonols are other plant nutrients that are really good for you. And of course, blueberries are delicious, at least this time of year in North Carolina. They're really good. And raspberries as well. Now, the thing is, when I grew up, I didn't like blueberries because the only time I ever had them, they were sour. And so I was just like, well, I don't like them. And so it is kind of important that you eat them when they're ripe. Now, you can get frozen blueberries. So if something's, if it's not blueberry season, um, when it is blueberry season, you can buy a lot of extra blueberries and then freeze them. And that way, when it's not blueberry season, you have ripe blueberries to enjoy out of the freezer. So that's kind of what I recommend, but frozen blueberries are as nutritious as fresh blueberries. So when it is not blueberry season, getting frozen blueberries is great, as well as, raspberries and other things. Okay, our next produce item from the summer is cherries. And I actually I have some right here in my little snack pack. I've found that they're very delicious right now. In North Carolina, I got them at just regular, grocery store, nothing fancy. I'm about to go to Washington State, and of course, cherries are really good there too. So cherries are a great source of potassium, vitamin C, vitamin A. That red color kind of tells you that there is some vitamin A and beta carotene in your particular produce. Of course, a good source of fiber, as all fruits and vegetables are. And there's your anthocyanins again. So again, by eating a variety, you get the nutrients you need. You don't necessarily have to focus on the nutrient itself. We encourage you to focus on getting a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and different colors. So now I will say the Rainier cherries, which are the kind of more white ones, they will have a different nutrition profile. That doesn't make them better or worse than red cherries. They probably have, less vitamin A, but they have more of something else. So again, there's no magical food. All the foods that grow in the ground that we can enjoy and eat are things that are going to have plant nutrients in them. And when you get a variety, you're going to get what you need because some of them can substitute for others. So antioxidants, maybe anthocyanins rank high on this one measure of antioxidant power, but that doesn't mean that the other antioxidants don't fill in and work as well. So our bodies are very resilient, and the way antioxidants function in the body, I do not think it requires you to have like a certain amount of a certain type of antioxidant. When you eat a variety of different foods, you get those nutrients and your body's able to use what you offer it. Next up is melons. Now, especially cantaloupe, which has more of, the orange color, will be a good source of vitamin A. Vitamin C is another great nutrient found in melons, and potassium, which if you missed I think it was my January webinar, we talk about the DASH diet. Potassium is one of those nutrients that the DASH diet really focuses on to help promote good health, especially heart health and managed blood pressure. Folate is part of this. Fiber, of course. And again, fiber is a great thing for gut health. And I think I know I've done a webinar on gut health before. So fiber is really important for that, as well as being good for heart health. So melons are really great. Again, these are things that you want to get them when they're ripe, right? You want to get them when they're in season because they are so delicious. And when they're not in season, or you go to some place where they have the buffet and they've got your melons on there, and you just know they're gonna be hard and taste like water, and that's sad. But honeydew and cantaloupe that are really ripe and fresh are so good. I have actually basically blended cantaloupe to make like cantaloupe water or cantaloupe smoothie, you might call it. So when they're good and ripe and juicy, you can make a smoothie out of it just by putting those in the blender, and it is delicious. Next up is nectarines and peaches. I personally grew up loving nectarines. They're a little harder. They don't tend to be as juicy as a peach, but I have also had really great peaches in the last month or so here in North Carolina. It's been hot. I believe it's been hot everywhere. But we do have a peach tree outside of our office. So any of you who are local clients, if you want to come by and grab a peach, you are welcome to. And yeah, so they're delicious. They give you copper, potassium, again, vitamin B3 and vitamin C, good source of fiber. A medium-sized nectarine provides 13.6% of your daily value for copper, 10% for vitamin B3, 8.5% for vitamin C, and 6% for calcium or for potassium. And then the fiber, they probably have about 2 to 3 grams of fiber each. And of course, they're delicious. Now, some of them are stone fruits where they kind of come right off of the pit, and some of them are harder to get off the pit. I like to cut mine into little pieces and eat them that way. And that way I don't get, peach juice running down my face. That's not my favorite. Plums are also on this list. Another, fruit that can get a little bit messy when it's really good. But the vitamin C that you find in there, and the antioxidants, the fiber, and especially in the skin, you get a lot of great nutrients. So if you can tolerate eating the skin, I would suggest it. I know the skin can be a little bit more sour, sort of like muscadine grapes, where the skin is very sour. But the skin and the flesh tend to be a little bit different, where the flesh is more of a pectin type of fiber, and then the skin can be more concentrated in some of the antioxidants and in this insoluble fiber. So fresh or dried plums are good for you. A dried plum is a prune. So I do talk about prunes if somebody is having any challenges with constipation, and having prunes regularly. 2 to 3 every day is what I recommend for people who are actively trying to get their bowels a little bit more regular. So they're great for you. And in season in the summer, you don't have to do the dried ones. And there's watermelon, of course. So we just had 4th of July, and watermelon feels like it is the ultimate 4th of July produce, it is 92% water. So when you make like watermelon smoothie, it's really just blending watermelon. And some people call it, watermelon juice. It is just taking that watermelon, put it in a blender, blend it up, and it has so much water content. You just drink it out of a straw and it is delicious. So when I have a lot of watermelon, and people don't really feel like eating it, if I scoop it out or cut it into cubes and just throw it in the blender, it's really easy to keep in the fridge for a day or two, and people will drink it pretty quickly. It's a great source of vitamin C, potassium, magnesium, and beta carotene and lycopene. So the lycopene goes with red, right? We'll talk about that when we get to the tomato section. So the lycopene, you find that in watermelon, as well as beta carotene, which comes with some of the more orange fruits and vegetables. Watermelon is delicious. And of course, you might argue about whether you should put salt on it or not. I am not a salty watermelon person. Never knew to do that. And then I moved to the South and people are like, oh, watermelon with salt. It's so good. So I can't say I love doing that, but I've heard plenty of people say that that's how they love to eat it. Okay. Next one is corn. So sweet corn is one of these summer produce that can be so delicious when you get it nice and ripe. So great source of B vitamins and magnesium, great source of fiber and complex carbohydrates. So corn is actually, I consider it a starch. So when we talk about including fruits and vegetables in your meals, I would actually count corn as a starch. Which is kind of nice. You could make like a plate full of vegetables, right? And it would meet all of your nutrient needs, including carbohydrates and protein, if you included some kind of plant protein. So corn is really great. Whether you have it on the cob, off the cob, even if you get it frozen, let's say it's not in season. Those are all great ways to consume your corn. And so you can cook it in the microwave. I don't know if any of you have tried corn in the microwave. You can search that on cancerdietitian.com for a recipe. It makes it really easy, especially if you're just cooking corn for like one or two or three or four people. Once you get up to like 6 ears of corn, it really doesn't seem necessary to put it in the microwave. My favorite ways, other than the microwave, I love to grill corn. I actually put it in the oven the other day, just left all the husk and everything on it, and let it basically roast in the oven. I don't think I've used an air fryer for it, but I bet you could. And I tend to I don't like the corn stuck in my teeth. So I prefer to cut the corn off the cob and then eat it that way. Both of my kids prefer it that way too. Um, and I did not like corn on the cob when I grew up. And I think it's because we didn't always get the sweetest corn. So when I had corn, it wasn't very sweet. And then we were always putting butter and salt and pepper on it to try to make it taste good. So now when I eat corn, I just try to get the sweet, good stuff, and I don't need to add anything to it. I can eat it just plain, or I love mixing it into like a summer salad that would have black beans and corn and avocado and tomatoes. And that's kind of my favorite way. I add corn to things like chili as well, because I just like that little pop of sweetness that comes with it. All right. Our next one is cucumbers. And so cucumbers are a really great, I think, flavorful and crunchy kind of produce. Sometimes we're craving texture when we go to eat something. And I like cucumbers because they're crunchy and they're pretty cool because most people keep them in the fridge. They're also great for flavoring water. So cucumber water people like. They have high water content similar to the watermelon. So that's a good source of water. It's a great source of fiber, vitamin C, vitamin K, and potassium. And I like to get the cucumbers that don't require any like taking off of the skin or the seeds. So I tend to buy like English cucumbers or some of the smaller ones where I just can eat them straight as they are, rinse them off and If it's the cucumbers that have more of the bitter skin, then I do prefer to take some of that skin off. And I almost never bother taking seeds out of cucumbers because I'm too much of a lazy chef. Like, probably I should, name myself a lazy chef. So I try to buy the cucumbers that are, easy to go. And they also they sell these little cucumbers that are almost the size of baby carrots, which is also really fun and easy to bring in your lunch without even having to prep anything. All right, so eggplant is next. I will admit, eggplant is not my favorite summer produce. I do like baba ganoush, and I have made baba ganoush before, which is basically, roasted, pureed eggplant that's mixed with like garlic, and it's a great dip, kind of like hummus. Um, but I'm a lazy chef, so I don't always like to make it. The times that I have really enjoyed making eggplant is slicing it really thin and oiling it, and then roasting it in the oven and with a little bit of tomato and Parmesan cheese. So they're almost like little eggplant pizzas. I have enjoyed it that way. They are a great source of lots of different nutrients. So manganese, thiamine, vitamin B6, vitamin K, folate, of course, fiber. And then the skin of eggplants, especially the purple ones, do provide extra antioxidants. So think about the skin of a plum. And a skin of an eggplant. They're generally the same color, almost similar texture. So they're going to have some similar nutrients, even though the inside is different. So yeah, eggplants are good for you. You can toss them in a stir fry. That's another way I've used it when I have done like summer produce boxes and a farmer brings me, whatever produce they're growing, and I don't pick it. So I just take what they bring me. And if I'm like, oh gosh, here's another eggplant, what am I going to do with it? I will sometimes just mix it in a stir fry that I'm making with maybe corn and zucchini and tomatoes. So it's just another vegetable in the mix, and I don't tend it, it's just there. And then I get to use it up and I get all of these nutrients into my body without really noticing. Green beans. I do love green beans. And growing up, we had a green bean plant, bush, I don't know what you want to call it, vine, stalk. And anyway, I would eat them right off the stalk. So some people don't love raw green beans, but I do love eating raw green beans in the you know, off the plant. And okay, I'm looking at some of the questions. Yes, they're good questions. Let me get to them in just a second. But cooked green beans are great. And sometimes it depends on how fresh they are, because if they're tender, then eating them raw is really good. But when they get a little bit harder, you definitely want to cook them a little bit. So they are a great source of vitamin C, beta carotene, antioxidants, folate, potassium, fiber, all types of things. So they are good and they're in season, and honestly, eat them raw, eat them cooked, it doesn't matter. So someone did ask a good question. Are seedless watermelons okay? Yes, they're totally fine. They're asking this because they've heard that they're genetically modified and unhealthy. There's a lot of different ways that you can basically engineer plants. Agriculture technology is, as almost old as time. And then it also has a lot of brand new ways that we farm. And I don't think that we need to be afraid of agriculture technology. I think it helps to understand how it works. So there's nothing wrong with genetically engineered foods or genetically modified organisms. There's really only 10 GMO crops that have been approved, and I don't think watermelon's one of them. I think the way they get seedless watermelons is the crossbreeding. I'm not totally sure on that. So it is totally fine. I always think it's interesting too, because there's been so much genetic modification just over time with the crossbreeding and all the agriculture technology. You can look up what would a banana look like if it had not been sort of bred to what a banana looks like to us now. We're pretty spoiled with like the foods that we have access to and how they've been tailored to be more tasty, more palatable to us. So I did a whole series on genetically modified foods on my podcast and in my Hot Topics webinar from before. So the bottom line is I don't have any trouble recommending that you eat foods that are genetically engineered, and seedless watermelons I don't think fit the typical person's definition of genetically modified. Bell peppers. So this is one of my favorite vegetables. They are great sources of vitamin C and A. Vitamin A, especially in red, orange, and yellow, again, because of that orangey color. They're a good source of folate and vitamin B6, fiber, and then lycopene more so in the red ones because lycopene tends to be found in red, like the watermelon and the tomato and the red pepper. Of course, an orange pepper has some red. So those are really good. And I also remind people that even the seed of a bell pepper you can eat. They are not hot. They're not spicy. We're not talking about hot peppers here. So I've shown people this before where I cut off, all the flesh of the pepper, and then what you have left is a stem with a whole bunch of seeds on it. And when I was a kid, I just loved green peppers, just loved how they tasted. And one day I was like, why do we always throw these seeds out? I wonder what they taste like. So I took a bite of it, and it just tastes like bell pepper. So now I don't even waste that part. I don't tend to put it in the foods I eat because a lot of people have a problem with it. They don't like how it looks. So I eat the seeds on the bell pepper, or I cut it off, and even the little white pithy part you can eat just like on an orange. So there's your tip of the day. Potatoes are another summer produce. They kind of grow mostly year round, at least in North Carolina. Now, these are white potatoes, and yes, they are still good for you. So they are a great source of complex carbohydrates. So again, I consider this a starchy vegetable, which counts on our sort of carbohydrate corner of the plate. They are good sources of vitamin C, B6, potassium, which most people know, especially in the skin of the potato, manganese, folate, and fiber again. So when people say, oh, but I heard white potatoes aren't any good for you, I'm like, I don't understand why people get this message. I know they're told don't eat too many white foods, but let's just say that white potatoes, there's nothing wrong with them. Look at all these delicious and amazing nutrients that you get in a white potato, and it's an excellent vehicle for other things like tomatoes and onions and cheese and bell peppers. I had a loaded potato for lunch yesterday. So great source of fiber, especially soluble fiber in the inside. Yes, sweet potatoes are good for you too. Yes, sweet potatoes will have a little different nutrient profile. They tend to be a little more water content. Sweet potatoes are orange, so they will also give you more beta carotene than white potatoes, but white potatoes are still good for you. Okay. So I think that it's important to remember that all plant foods are going to have a good nutrient profile. It might be different from other foods. It doesn't make it better or worse. So I am here to tell you, you can include potatoes on your plate. Zucchini, which I think someone mentioned that they don't do well with eggplant. So they usually substitute zucchini for eggplant, which I am with you. I would tend to prefer eating zucchini over eggplant. But try a little variety sometimes. I do love squash, I guess squash is yellow zucchini, or zucchini is just green squash or something like that. Anyway, the zucchini is green and the yellow squash is yellow. And one of our volunteers gave me some yellow squash recently. So I sauteed yellow squash with onion and tomato and okra, and it was delicious. It took me a while. As a kid, I did not like squash. I think most of the time when it was made for me, it was very mushy. So I try to cook my squash or zucchini by like slicing it really thin and then stir frying it or pan frying it in oil so that it gets more caramelized with onions, but don't cook it so much that it gets soggy. That's when I don't want it. I try not to add any water when I'm cooking it because I want it to be dry and caramelized versus soft and squishy. The other way I love zucchini is that I have chickpea curry recipe on my website, and it uses zucchini in it. And one of my interns during COVID, she figured out this recipe, and we did it as I did it as one of my virtual cooking classes. Delicious. It is so good. So when I see a zucchini, I almost always jump in my mind straight to the chickpea curry with zucchinis. Oh yeah, somebody said zucchini and squash are really great air fried. So that's the air frying is that's basically like an easier, faster way to roast, right? Smaller space for them. So yeah, air frying or convection oven or roasting them is an awesome way because it dries it out. It keeps the air dry, which means that it does more caramelizing in the cooking process and less just becoming mushy. So there you go. Okay, what's next? Tomatoes. Everybody loves tomatoes in my area. And there are some people that just I don't know why they don't like tomatoes, but most people around here are crazy about tomatoes. I call August and July and August are tomato season where I live. And when I first moved here, I didn't realize it, but people kept coming in bringing me tomatoes and talking about tomato sandwiches. And I was like, what is with these people? And now I also get tomato fever because once you have a really good tomato, you're like, wow, this is amazing. So that said, tomatoes are a great source of fiber. They are also very well known for their lycopene. So especially for prostate cancer risk reduction, we talk a lot about lycopene. It is found more in cooked tomato products because it kind of concentrates the tomato down. So things like spaghetti sauce, um, and chilies where you're using tomato paste will have more lycopene. Fresh tomatoes are good for you too. Personally, I like to have a tomato sandwich. So if anybody's not from the South or lived in the South, a tomato sandwich is if you're, this is what I've been told. If you are true to a real tomato sandwich, you have Wonder Bread. So that would be white bread. You have mayonnaise. I assume it has to be Duke's, but I don't really know. And then tomato. And like that's it. So when I first heard that, I was like, okay, I've never had that. And I'm thinking in my mind, there's no protein in that sandwich. So I have this mental block over it. So not having grown up on tomato sandwiches, I do love a tomato sandwich. I will make it with whole wheat bread and mayonnaise and tomato and salt and pepper. But if I wanted to have protein, I like to use hummus. So I do hummus instead of mayonnaise, and I still use salt and pepper and a good juicy ripe tomato, and I think it's delicious. Now, the real, hardcore tomato sandwich people are like, oh no, you can't do that. But you can make it however you like. You can also do the same with cucumbers, which I think is also delicious. What else? Well, I got a little typo here. Folate, potassium, good things about tomatoes. So that was the last highlight of the different seasonal produce. To find out what is in season in your area, I went ahead and made a special page just for seasonal summer produce. So you can go to cancerdietitian.com/produce. And on that page, I link like a guide to seasonal produce just in general. And then there's a guide to produce in different areas. So like by region. And then there's one specifically for North Carolina. And then I also put a few different recipes on there. So don't go there yet because I'm not done talking about, recipes. So the next thing I want to point out is that there are people who will ask me this question. They've heard raw produce is more nutritious than cooked produce. That is not true. When produce is cooked, it sometimes activates certain nutrients and deactivates other nutrients. So it's important that you just get a variety, including both cooked and raw vegetables in your diet. So sometimes we eat tomato sandwiches, sometimes we eat spaghetti sauce. So I think that enjoy it both ways. You don't need to worry about whether everything's raw. All right, so here's a few different ideas. Fruit salad. I'm like, do you need a recipe for fruit salad, really? Get your most ripe favorite fruits, cut them up and put them in a bowl. And somehow it's like so much more delicious when they're all mixed together. If it needs a little flavor, let's say it's like the beginning or end of the season and some of your berries are maybe not as sweet as you would like them to be, you can mix some honey and lime juice and just add that to your salad to help give it a little bit extra flavor. Let's see. Whoop, what did I just do? Okay. I'm trying to get to my next slide, which I think, oh, it keeps putting up the recipe on the website. Hold on, let me get my next one. There we go. Okay, so this one is, and I link these, the ones where I leave the links in there, they are linked on that same produce page on my website. So I really liked this idea. This was almost like a layered summer vegetable casserole, and it looks delicious. So definitely something that I would suggest trying. On the recipe, they have you like thinly slicing potatoes on the bottom and making sure you have some oil, salt and pepper, and then you're layering sliced tomatoes, sliced zucchini, and bell peppers and onions, and a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And it just sounds like it would be really good. So definitely that's one to try. Then there's a cherry smoothie. Again, I don't really think you need a recipe per se to make smoothies. Essentially, you pick milk, that's your liquid, and you put in whatever fruits. So I almost always put frozen bananas because I always have a ton of them in my freezer, and they give a great smooth texture and add that perfect kind of sweetness. If you don't like bananas, mangoes have a similar, if you can get good ripe frozen mangoes or fresh mangoes that you freeze, they have a similar texture, so that's nice. And then cherries and pineapple, and you can add chia in here if you want. You don't have to. It does help to kind of thicken up your smoothie and add extra fiber and a little protein, which is, I think, a value add. Um, and the type of milk you choose, I would choose a milk that has protein. So I'm not a fan of almond or coconut or oat, or, those milks don't tend to have very much protein per volume. I prefer cow's milk, soy milk. Fairlife milk is a good lactose-free alternative and gets you extra protein. So I like those as my smoothie ingredients, and you just blend those up. Delicious. Pasta salad, I looked this one up too. I think it looks really good. My intern helped me find it. A great way to just kind of make a one dish meal, which is handy. You can saute a whole bunch of vegetables, and essentially, you can add, this one has you add pine nuts. You could add a little bit of black beans or white beans, toss them with whole grain pasta, and you have like a one dish meal, which is another one of my favorites. Not have to cook too many different things. All right, so we're pretty much at the end of time. Let me check our questions. Um, yes, so I have recipes that are linked on cancerdietitian.com/produce. So the ones that I mentioned on there. If you are local, sorry, I'm not quite sure if the questioner is a local person, but I do cooking classes every other month. So in August, we will be doing summer produce recipes. So that'll be really fun. But yes, I will send out, they're linked on that page already, but in the next couple of weeks, I'll send out more of the formal recipes for that. Good question. And oh, someone asked, is tomato actually a fruit? So it depends who you ask. Are you asking a horticulturist, which are like plant kind of they grow the plants, right? They're kind of more like the connection between the plant and the consumer, versus a botanist who is more of like the plant scientist. And I believe that a botanist would define anything with a seed as a fruit, technically. So if it has seeds, it's a fruit. But a horticulturist more defines a fruit if it has a sweet taste. Like, would you be willing to eat it for dessert? Cherries, raspberries, yes. Tomatoes, not dessert. So From a nutritional standpoint, we count it as a vegetable. It does not have the same amount of fruit sugar in it. So probably that's from a dietitian standpoint. I would count tomatoes as a vegetable, and I would, not, I would count something like avocado as a vegetable. All right, let me see. We answered that one. We answered any other questions that you all want answered. All right, so here's your links that you'll want to know. And yes, I will send out the recording of this webinar. I'll send out these links in a follow-up email tomorrow. If you needed to see any other webinars, you can go to cancerdietitian.com/webinar, and you can find my plant-based eating for cancer survivors, which kind of covers the overall healthy diet. Fighting Cancer with Your Fork is a webinar I did a little while ago, and it covers not just produce, but other types of foods and how they help promote health of your body. And then I did a carbs webinar, the DASH diet webinar, all in the past year, and they're all listed basically in sort of date order of when I presented them. And then my next webinar will be September 19th at 3:00. We use the same link every time. And I'll be talking about evaluating supplements and integrative therapies and how you can kind of be wise and discerning when it comes to which ones you might be willing to consider. And then on August 13th is my next in-person cooking class. It will be in the evening, and we'll do the summer produce, some of the summer produce recipes. And so, yeah, for those of you who are local, I hope you can come out to that. If you're not local, I will send out the recipes and recipe cards for that. So that's all for today. Thank you so much. I will be sending out an evaluation. If you can fill that out and let me know what you learned, that would be awesome. And that is all for today. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, a great weekend, and that you find some amazing and delicious produce to enjoy as you have learned all the nutritional benefits. What's most important is that your taste buds love it. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great week.